Hello, America. This is regarding American elections. This is regarding where and how the candidates of elections are maintained victims, victim predators, and used remotely, originally, and still. For example, it's very simple to explain that and how there was a breaching method that was using human fact cheating nature when they had crazy database laws against every single person and anyone who didn't conform to them as fact treatment nature, as positive and negative treatment nature, which is simultaneously forced by being identities, identity of volume, the way it is. So I swear to God, I have no prejudice against any type of person, for example, but each identity of group is recorded in collusion uses of that. Now, the evidences of this, which is actually recorded, is where and how you try to have mandated law followed. For example, in relationship to uses of the FBI, its identity, and of the CIA, its identity, and of the Weathersfield Police, their identity together, individually grouped together. Just one with one executive branch, state police involved with them, the use of their identity. Oh, it's not our job to, we're just directed to defend our identity. It's not a perfect world. They have the perfect world involved with where and how they backed each identity of each branch of government into being criminal and insidious nature criminally. Through a whole bunch of juxtaposed, there manifest other reasons of evil, but not the one we have to counter. That already used and effectively uses, as is actually recorded, every single identity of the ground location sickly, distinctly. But that means that, thank God, everyone's simultaneously a victim of it. And thank God, in other modern nations too, we're in the same semi-ancient trap. Now, even if I was wrong, the solution reveals lifting the bottom simultaneously in a way that's ensuring every place is revealed to an identity of the ground relationship that is really not just the identity of the body of each country, nation, but as the identity of our species, identity of volume. So we have the candidates, for example, they want to talk about positive and negative. It's all right to have opinions. It's all right. Well, that's just what I meant. See, but that can't defend itself and afford correlations, free speech uses of finite. See, because that needs to keep time self-valued, just like this breaching method knew here and there. And when we start, criminally foreign influence, then they have to defend that. This is completely fact-cheating nature oriented, so we're premises oriented. Now, we're not only are the branches of government of each modern nation criminally foreign influence victims, but this is how they're kept victim predators. It is clear as day how our species volume was exploited right through the Obama administration. Because right through administration, the most important thing about the reason this understanding this breaching method is the most important thing, because that's the only reason what they call poverty. Then they make defenses of that. In other words, now that this is misprison needs to be fake care as criminal and serious nature. I'm not a lawyer. Lawyers, each of the sciences, are victims of bridged, not fathoming, not having fathomed, valuing not having fathomed because the Constitution abridged. The Constitution is not supposed to be abridged. The simultaneous values of the Constitution. When I ask to have mandated law followed, the executive branches forges names and switches names. They already put lies into databases. This has relationship to where we have peaceful counters to all these nations of the same thing, the same source of it, but self-valued source of it. That's manifest as styles of liars. Again, in relationship to the finite and its relationship to correlation. It's already, no one ever heard anybody but criminal insidious nature in collusion as fake care, in collusion with the evil, with each location. Now, this is not a conspiracy theory. People pretending that not to understand people. I said plenty of times, mandated law, but is not followed. WFSB, for example, they attach me to fake words. They attach my family and other people to fake words. They sequence shifted, including lying about how they were approaching that story. They sequence shifted with families of people on the child sex offender registry who are involved with them also through time with identity the ground where they were lying in cases, where there were roles with that self-value and getting away with it, how people were putting fake things in databases. They have the campuses of each age and nature and type and stature. They have private schools in collusion with what kept it used remotely. Then they had to hide it, not by accident, right down to the finite in the World Trade Center attack. Location in the Ninth Circuit, right next to it. And in that way, through correlation too, they use the sense and sensibilities of people associated with that leading up to it and since. Now they use the DeMoro family. They use people and a whole bunch of other people associated with my. That's one of the Weathersfield police. Are one of the people that a family member said is part of the Weathersfield police with them. So everyone's speaking to other people, and the interbranch uses a crime method of confessions from strangers to lock them into collusion with where they had the high lie progressions that has the identity of each person of each branch in it, misprison. So where it's simple correlation. If you entertain black and white, see, it's hard in my little one. If you entertain black and white, as was and is forced to entertain, that's not only evidence of the individual of the people. That's evidence of what influenced it. This is very simple, but all rules with it value what makes it complicated, where people are all liars together, while simultaneously pretending not to be liars, simultaneously valuing misprison identities of branches of government to collusion with only allowed that. When real or made up, if you entertain perpetrating or teaching about witch trials, leaving out the database crime method that prevented free speech and forced everyone to pretend they have free speech. We have we have the phenomenon of standing manifest types of people. Well, this is because they're the types of counters. It's right. It's all right for someone to say it's right. Is completely right always for someone to say. They make people to say that their rights are forsaken for cultural reasons, for example. But see, now they're using that truth to lie to themselves and everybody. Because, in other words, where there are exceptions in exception nature, This is prevented free speech. So we had criminally foreign influence logic styles, self-valuing experts on logic that are involved with falsifying, pretending whole conversations and people to fake locations into databases. And now, see, they had this already used their lie progressions. What is manifest is how they already got over on everyone because they got over on correlation nature, not fathoming originally and still. Nations A through B, A through Z, A1 through Z, whatever, and increasing where it counts. Even it goes away, it increases as value, as sequence nature, because it can't separate itself from how and why it is simultaneous nature. Nature is identity. There is one identity of volume that is the identity of relativity. It is the value of the order of physics simultaneously, but while being the value of the order of metaphysics, simultaneously while being the order of and as identities, identity of relationship to itself and the value of that. It's each nature of volume, each is an identity of volume. An identity has a relationship to positive and negative simultaneously. When I was in middle school, we learned. So I'm going to speak about the past because I'm going to show you how where and how the candidates like Mr. Biden. This is critical because Mr. Biden is associated with the Obama administration, and we know that humanity never had free speech speak for allowed or to use the finite. See Martin Luther King. This is where he's about not blind glorification of his name. He wants conscious, acute attention to the details of how he's being prevented free speech. He's forced to entertain fake positive, fake care self-valued, criminally foreign influence, care self-valued, breaching method employed. Again, where and how the branches of government are in collusion, it's individually grouped and together. It's all private tied to them. And it was through this breaching method before that. It was sophistication to all identity ground locations. So people see the illusion of fake sides of correlation nature and or victims, and then defenses of that used for this other method against everyone. So victim predators where and how it counts. So now, for example, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, former standing chairperson on Racketeering Influence to Corrupt Organization Act, the RICO statute. He had a co-defendant in a 2006 case who had one of them had a daughter named LaConcha. I never had a class with her. I never had a conversation with her. Not even one sentence, not one word. Now, they tried to pretend others. One time they might have tried, but they wouldn't be able to do that on paper. With a Heather Hansen, this is nothing personal. These are strangers who sought me out, which is relevant because those are the people involved now. And through time, with database crimes, with courts, the branches of government's databases, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously know from the databases of the campuses. Also recorded further distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously know intersciences, abridged, for a method that knew that defenses of the Constitution's surface values simultaneously would be incapable. They would be incapable of affording defenses of that and protraction of all that is discernible as the bonded identity of revelations, the series of revelations, two evolutions, fruits, and gifts. Where and as and how that is in our means capable. So we have offensively modern nations individually grouped and together, having worse than having entertained. Crime methods where they pretend people make theories while they are attaching us to fake words, fake locations. Now they're doing this with doctors also. And they've been preventing police reports by forcing people to collusion with areas and with uses of other people's names. No, this simultaneously uses of what is positive or negative. No uses of what is true or false. No uses of facts as criminal insidious natures. That is clear as day. Hear many pray. See, no one spoke for all that. See, that is simultaneously. See, what needs to be pretended to be, what is an identity of justice? Each identity of the ground location that has forsaken words that this breaching method knew they would have to value not realized in relationship to the questions manifest. I tell it best this way. Because this is one identity of value progression. This is the identity the sciences share. This is music science, then theory. This is really what bonds the notes distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously to themselves in such a way. This is the notes are inside what is A through Z manifest in demonstration of this. Ancients revealed that now the sounds of the English language have an identity of relationships to themselves, relationship/s to themselves, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, as one identity that is inside its complete identities, complete identity of volume, as each cell of your body is, as each organ of your body is, individually grouped and together. They are all semi-nature relationship to your complete identities, complete identity of relationship to itself. And that is simultaneously inseparable from the identity of value progressions, identity of relationship to itself. That is really true always, not denying exceptions, exception nature. Now, this is relevant because this is how you think. We have experts on how to think, self-valuing roles with private databases and semi-private. We have doctors of medicine, their family members, recorded already involved with what is actually recorded. Requires a quality of fact keeping nature that reveals that and how overt criminal enterprises, hundreds of nations, all private, and uses worse than this have been used. All pains are failed. That's why it's so simple when you see black and white. When what is formal answers questions about that. What is Jim Crow laws about? Shock and awe. They needs to complicate things that are simple, so it makes them back up shock and awe. Now this is leading up to the World Trade Center and in it. They use the identity of each location. Then they want to have fight and need to have fights formally. New Britain Superior Court, for example, Hartford courts also do this. All the on and off the state judicial branch, all the courts, all the police forms. I'm not saying each identity of the ground location is not a victim. This is where how they're used as victim predators. Everyone in collusion too, well, opinions lied to. This is what is actually recorded, but you have to have mandated law followed. You have to have simultaneously see. There's a difference between having the right to say words and having free speech. See, we have those little 2-year-old games recorded with precedents and statutes themselves, self-valued, criminally foreign influence. Not just uses of that, but the whole thing is uses of defenses of that. That self-values phenomena like anomaly associated with medical database. You're not supposed to speak about medical records. They're just using that to make up things. They're attaching me to fake conversations that weren't at all with the Leahy family, with the ones that work on Hartford Hospital through time, a whole bunch of various natures of courts and their drug cliques, interbranch, per people who sought me out after they graduated. No, like a Rick Faglione. He was involved with the courts, with prosecutors, and with judges who attach me to fake locations, attach little kids to fake locations, sequence shifts. And that's with other people on off Hangdog Lane, where it runs into Two Rod Highway, on off Two Rod Highway. Also, people recorded confessed that the Dillon family is involved with them, with dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court, which is 2 towns over, 3 towns. Depends relativity to what? You see, there's an identity of relativity tied to everything. But we have this worse than obfuscated and worse than self-valued obfuscated. To keep what? This recorded crime method against fact-cheating nature. And what is it doing? It's pretending that we have the right to free speech because we were heard. They're pretending not to understand us. Mandated law is not followed. I was attached to fake words by the media, by WFSB, by Fox Connecticut News. They also recorded communicating and this way saying that, and how also with Weatherfield, that's in Hartford, Connecticut, Rocky Hill, Connecticut. I'm in Wethersfield, Connecticut. This is intercities. The same ones involved leading up to with them now on off the state judicial branch offices in my town too. On off the state prison offices, no. Half Wethersfield, half Connecticut, Hartford involved with that too. They have value progression. That's why I'm bringing up on off the state judicial branch offices, on off all campuses, further on off them in layers, is collusion with what is also recorded relevant to further recorded through the Obama administration relevant Sandy Hook, prisons, and very other natures of courts, and then individually grouped and together, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Databases stewards of Newtown Sandy Hook. This is not theory at all. This is what is actually recorded and confessed and demonstrated. They have involvement with predicate acts on with people from my town, private, interbranch, overt criminal enterprises, the witness protection program, the people associated with the stewards of it, and with the body dumping spots involved with that, and with a serial killer, and with the spot of his location, and with his roles with the courts and prisons that put him away. No, in Sandy Hook too. crimes also with child offenders before they were caught, and further with a filcolo, with prosecutors, male and female, state's attorneys. They use crime methods, forging names, switching names, attaching innocent people to fake locations, self-valuing criminally foreign influence precedents and statutes so they can keep hurting each age of correlation nature, each location's representatives of anything. Keep them collusion at the same time, self-valued roles with the misprison breaching method. No one realized they were roles with because everyone blamed the perfect world having been forsaken. The perfect world's identity of volume increases as a positive or negative relationship to ourselves, but we have that reversed in relationship to the identity of relativity, which is distinct from the body of relativity. Positive is the body of relativity, is a body of relativity. Identity of relativity has both positive and negative. Relative to its increasing identity of volume, that we each are distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, as value further positive or negative so we could discern. Now each must learn. So, for example, manifest intercities of each state are victims used remotely, how they're supposed to respond to information. Because already used remotely, that's why the president is trying to say. See, he can't, President Trump, don't, but it's easy for me to discern this because I had the people at each of my campuses recorded, very simple to discern predicate acts, roles with database crimes, where they attach people to fake locations, kids, and then adults and their families, stuff like that. Simultaneously, the interbranch, you can't bring recording device into a court. They have been originally and still using courts to pretend fake recorded things. Their identity, their inclusion with a crime method, they use their identity, the ground location. That same crime method already used the identity of the ground campuses of each age and nature and statute, including fire campuses, including private database relationships simultaneously, including and kept with the overt criminal enterprises actually recorded, how kept needing to hide the same finite, active, progressive lies, identity thefts, frauds, and worse than war crimes roles, lies, which is relevant to the very simple identity of answer/s that is forsaken so many ways at once by all formal positions that are every time they bring up a topic that's serious. Not by accident, misprison, people were invested to defenses of therefore manifest styles of sense and sensibilities. Use a phrase associated with Jane Austen, associated with each position, each difference of the human species, forced to entertain uses of difference that, if entertained, one cannot self value. The quality of fact, human nature, beyond unlimitless to correlation nature, simultaneously inherent, active, and progressive means. One way redeems. So one greater trinity, one identity's relationship to itself, and the value of that. Is increasing from inside itself. where it's making more and where it made and keeps becoming more and more value by having taken part of the value, by taking its complete volume, complete possession over the body of forever, but as an identity that will only stay positive unto itself. Pushed half of the volume, it pushed a third of the volume of what is positive to the identity of value progression, all things are at once. That is space is identity into the identity of existence. And part of the identity of existence, it pushed into its complete nature of volume, which filled in and kept complete its identity of relationship to itself and the value of space and the value of the body of existence, both semi-natures, bonded by the identity of forever and as the identity of forever, as if we were all cells of the body of forever, simultaneously as individuals, identities, complete as trinities. Cell nucleus, cell body. So, well, I'm not a doctor, not a police form, not a criminal. There are recorded as evidence the physical delusions simultaneously, the criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments simultaneously as evidence. And this, to discern this, you have to follow mandated law. Now, how they pretend other is by self-valuing where and how we have the people that lead the World Trade Center, lead the identity of the ground, types of experts, private and interbranch. So associated with this. Now this has self-value. This is completely fact, cheap, and nature oriented. This is completely positive and negative and oriented. This is completely identity oriented. Evidence is recorded how they use conspiracy theories to pretend they don't realize roles preventing and having prevented mandated law, simultaneously having self-valued people associated. See, when they have to lie about how they already used their locations in their branch criminally, they're simultaneously further and further needing to lie about how they're using each identity of the ground, location, let alone ourselves, criminally. Our identities know what is positive in relationship to relativity, actually, with sequence true. This is inclusion. This made nations A through Z, they didn't even realize it was between them. While it was still perfecting, making, enforcing, only capable of being tribes A through Z, blaming other things, others themselves, even especially regarding how where they are correctly doing it, blaming other things, others themselves for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Acts like predicate acts, natures like criminal insidious natures, natures like wrongdoers. No, and justifications of those premises treatments. No, especially regarding distinctly and non-distinctly, especially. A lot of ways, the branches of government and the overt criminal enterprises are in collusion, not by accident. They're used remotely by the same method that is effectively, consciously a method engineering and having engineered a whole bunch of methods of evil that are perpetual as fact cheap in nature styles of liars, pretending other as positive uses of positive negative, uses of identity, of themselves, of others, and of the species, to keep all that is simple and limitless, the series of connected revelations. That is actually what must and does lead science, or it demonstrates where and how science is. And it demonstrates lethal IDs for space nature transfer, which an extinction is manifest in demonstration of. For example, the extinction of species, the extinction of the discernment of the value of their difference. For example, distinction of the discernment. We have tactically, criminally denatured soils everywhere, let alone where it's the worst. All victims that are right because for right because that's the way we're in a system. Other so we can counter this by using the phenomenon of the side of what is greater than power and might alone and together. It's means from nowhere. It's where evolutions of fruits and gifts come from. It is more scientific to conclude that we must that there is an E that we must put at the end of Santa Claus, and we must proclaim what is actually recorded: statutes and precedents, criminally foreign influenced, not just to defend the name and identity of on St. Nicholas. He was put in prison. Now, this is most probable per actually recorded collusion with criminally foreign influence databases and uses of that, per the same method that effectively made colonists A through Z already blaming other things others themselves, even weren't right. Even when they were blaming themselves correctly for what they were doing, what they were causing negative value nature progressive exponentialism through the Native Americans. They didn't realize that was needed. They needed the Native Americans and they needed those predators against them, were their victim predators, to blame other things others themselves, then to defend that. Don't forget we have victim predators, witch trials. You're a victim predator if you need a witch trial. That's evidence. What if you made up? Everyone's using other people's evidences. See, what's evidence, what's not. They're putting fake transcripts into databases they were doing that leading up to. So we start admitting we don't have integrity over here. Hundreds of nations at once, A through A1 through Z, whatever. They're stuck like this. Manifest uses of positive and negative treatments, identity treatment, sequence treatments. You can't defend that. And also at the same time, not by accident. So we have people who are experts on mandated law who pretend who use knowledge of the law to play little kid games. And then, so they're child abused, each branch of government. And they are recorded. This is recorded. Central Connecticut State University is in New Britain, Connecticut. And right next to Central, on the southern side of Central Connecticut State University is Paul Manafort Drive. There are courts. There are courts in our police who pretended to be against what they furthered, which is crimes with other nations. All these, I'm not going to use their names, but all the nations they pretend to be against crimes with. I'm using the word crimes because they also, for example, each branch of government, each identity of job with the courts. They've been using the words like crimes criminally through criminal foreign influence, again, through defenses of such. That's why we have to counter the sequence shifts in the actually recorded, falsified transcripts, fake recorded things in courts. Because simultaneously it is recorded, actually recorded, what, where, and how that's connected to inter-campuses and intra-campuses of each age, nature, and stature, with unrealized bonded connections and uses of them, and where and how all these bonded other motivations, natures, interests, roles with sense and sensibilities are used remotely. So we have them recorded uses of each identity of group. Like you have clubs. These people are the soul. This is a cultural location that these people come because this is our culture. In this part, we have a cultural center here. We have a thing there. Oh, but we hang out. These are victims. Positive and negative. Identity. Sequence true. Correlation true. It's all right. People have opinions. If it's all right if they want to dispute other people's opinion. But see, now give someone means to counter when their delusions rot and lying. So there are people on off. This on off the campuses of each age and nature connected. This shows how they're exploiting our identity of volume slash S, and where and how it is discernibly a volume slash S, and where the slash stands for the identity of volume we are as a quality of diffusion, not just as a identity where we are standing. That's why, for example, the species is recorded invisible but still discernible proofs of this. The invisible but discernible is in demonstration to us all ways at once. But we have positive treatments, originally and still criminally foreign influence and collusion with negative treatments and with identity treatments. Don't forget this and realize it and discern it. So follow mandated law, please. This shows that we're in how military also. Please respond. Also, like for example, the media recorded, confessed, and demonstrated they were led by the courts with sequence shifts. There are courts of Connecticut on and off the state judicial branch offices involved with some kind of value progression thing where they have people walk up to you, and that's used criminally because then they pretend sequence shifts, they pretend illusions. Not by accidents, they're handed those to have them self-value in relationship to correlation nature then. For example, in relationship to uses of black and white, you could see how they have actually recorded other natures of motivations. Needs to pretend to be about justice, but they can't be. So they're handed things like prejudice to pretend to believe. In other words, because they need to counter things. It's again witch trials, countering. They need to counter things. They have to blame other things, others themselves, for the real causes of the criminal and seditious natures, not their own. From the wrongdoers, not their own. But they also have to value that where it is their own. That's a phenomenon that is fact human nature manifest. I tell it best. Bach sings, so it could use each modern nation, each identity of it, each identity of each tribal member, tribes A through Z. before they already had everyone needed for time and position. They separated them from their actually recorded sophistication of education. They imposed fake stories about their history. They do that now against us each. Someone must teach. They've been attaching little kids to fake locations through time. They've been using the victim identities of each branch of government to have them pretend other. Where and how. So all we have to do is counter where they keep them, in other words, where they have no integrity, but they're pretending all they're simultaneously. This is evidence. It's very simple. You'll see manifest uses of phrases like scientific process and like phrase slash value, like slash value progression, like scientific consensus, scientific process, used criminally foreign influence. With premises treatments, valuing the criminal and foreign influence. Like, for example, when you say, well, how come the law never speaks for how all the ways that are tortured? People with in forsaken locations inside a forsaken value nature system / S, all ulterior from the one that is our actual means. Since before cars and through this torture method and fact-cheating nature slavery method against our founders, only a punk would compare them. See, but they make everyone punks. And they make them compare them to the slaves where the black and white was used. Where and how it was actually recorded, our founders didn't have free speech, and they still have words forced on them, just like they had words sickly, distinctly forced on everyone. Not just because, and they made that self-valued too, because they had to hide from and hurt each identity of correlation nature, anywhere it was standing. They need to forge sides, forge groups, maintain self-value, because they're getting over how and why. Correlation nature has needs by discernment capable. Where and how. We are distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. The shared identity of volume distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously as itself. Again, an increasing identity of volume. And this is volume science. So we have theories offensively in collusion private, in collusion with what is interbranch self-value. Every modern nation at once, individually grouped together. So that's self-values. But countless things to be able to blame stuff on. Other things, others themselves. Where and how it's in collusion with what really is causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. The dreams of our presidents and of chiefs, Native American chiefs, real and distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously, is to have afforded a means to protract. So the only way we could do this is by following mandated law. We have to, it is evidence how people who know the law were and are using that to pretend they have knowledge about things that are true that aren't, while they are simultaneously further and further stacking more recorded fake things into databases, further and further self-valuing criminally foreign influenced readings of statutes, uses of that, then self-defended. Not by accident, the leaderships of all tied to them like prisons have to keep with their family members too. Kept needing to hide because this is an identity of the ground next to each person Each identity ground location is kept needing to hide line progressions, needing to hide self-value, correlation. Uses of identity never had integrity. Shock and awe couldn't fathom how fake everyone is, including who thinks this is real. Not me. In other words, would they have formally claimed database relationships integrity? It is evidence how it was not. It is not. It is evidence how they are forcing people to entertain fake positive that is simultaneously in collusion with physical delusions and with aggressions, down to murder and murder methods and collusion with police forms and with courts in collusion. They don't have the integrity to solve stuff. Their whole courts are recorded involved with live progressions from there. These are sense and sensibilities of every city, of every state. Again, fake, positive, and true. So the sense and sensibilities, the pains of everyone masked, dishonest. So we have to address how everyone's victim of this breaching method. We have to counter it. Countering that, ensuring we're countering it right, just needs to claim identity of the grounds, identity of relation to itself, forsaken by a worse than war crimes method. And we have to figure out what to do with space. We have means way beyond this. Pathology for since before cars, with the torture of and the fact cheap nature of slavery of our founding parents. Can't even justify uses of formal uses of and opinions regarding identity ground relationships like uses of town meetings, elections, locations are also involved with this. Actually recorded. Identity thefts, frauds, racketeering roles, sequence shifts. Then they want people to debate things out of sequence. They want to leave out identity thefts that came before things. Because we have interbranch roles with identity thefts, frauds, racketeering, worse than war crimes. They have uses of all identity, even sexual groups, recorded used as weapons by branches of government, simultaneously pretending to be against things they're already for. Crimes with Russians, pretending they believe Paul Manafort is involved with them. They know that on off Central Connecticut State University, there are a whole bunch of interbranch families, judges even retired and standing, prosecutors retired and standing, further involved with predicate acts. It's nothing personal against CCSU. These are influences for often the fact should be nature oriented, positive and negative oriented, identity oriented. They want to pretend out of sequence. People have problems, and people have simultaneously they have fake positive treatments. Then you have to entertain them. There are people in the background already having been used. Now these are campuses also involved with the training of experts of each science, of each age and nature of campus. This is recorded how they are kept victims, and it is recorded how they are kept victim predators. And that is relevant to, this is very simple. That is relevant to and as what was used, were actually recorded leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack. So I never had conversation with people that they had time walk different times when I was in school, like 2-3 times. They would have me go to the office for something I don't even remember, like nothing bad. And then they're going to have a time, someone's going to make a confession. Someone's going to be interbranch influenced because interbranch has recorded live progressions, sequence shifts, database crimes, interages of campuses and on off them too, connections. This is rule uses of corners of streets, on off all again, small world, big world, where that's good and bad, both ways used for bad. Breaching method, same, but not, it's through criminal foreign influence, but it's not sourced by one person, nation. It's fluent through each. It uses defenses of premises treatments, This is where and how we are fact cheap nature as value, as identity. Value is in demonstration of positive and negatives, identity of relationship to identities, identity of relationship to this native pure system. No matter who we are, sequence true. Oh, so follow mandated law. It is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated by WFSB. They are involved with predicate acts with New Britain Superior Court, New Britain, Connecticut, and Hartford courts, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack. This is Connecticut. Now these are also people involved with further proven and further um, databases involve crimes. They don't even realize the extent it was proven too, because this is how they were used as shock and awe. This is also how their identities were used. On and off the Ninth Circuit involved with sequence shifts and with identity thefts and frauds, interstates. That's Ninth Circuit where the World Trade Center attack was, right next to it. Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, I guess. I don't know if they only do appeals. A panel of judges have been presented insidiously post-dated from inside the court, post-dated what had already been handed into the court on time and time-stamped timely, right before the World Trade Center attack. That proven led to a 2000. That was 2001. So 2006. The proven led to 2006 case with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin and with his co-defendants, who are involved with a bunch of predicate acts at each of the campuses I went to, and with wrongdoing with that, and with sequence shifts on and off the campuses I went to, and with houses next to it. Former director of the FBI and his federal criminal co-defendants in that 2006 case, also as the ones from Central Connecticut State University, InterSciences, involved intercities. That's New Britain, Connecticut. I'm Wethersfield, Connecticut. They're involved with predicate acts and with wrongdoing through mail crimes, wire crimes, and roles with the branches of government. Our Justice Department. This is intermilitary also. Recorded, confessed, demonstrated, involved with them. Military police, their family members, involved with fake things typed into databases. That can't defend that and pretend it's capable of defending free speech. That was his roles with that self-value. That's what's actually recorded. Forgiveness is not to give up. Forgiveness is to force the people who pretend they have no forgiveness to be demonstrated. That's because they're pretending passion and emotions dishonestly. Our branches of government. That's evidence. It is also evidence that and how the other nations were and are the same thing. So they counter each other too as fake sides of correlation nature, because they were raised as victim predators, child abused. Each modern nation, each identity, ground location, each person. Very simple means to it. It seems more complex than it is. It's more simple than how we have all that database relationships anyway. It's very simple. See, but those database relationships were used remotely. So you have to follow mandated law. And this requires countering courts that pretending they have to rule on things that are already recorded and already confessed by themselves. They don't understand the extent of it because everyone speaks through others. That's also recorded evidence. There are many, many evidences recorded in conjunction. So don't forget. WFSB, Fox Connecticut News, Intercity, on off Fox Connecticut News. They are also with like two Mendez police, a Domain family, involved with various natures of state police, Wethersfield police, intercities. That's mine for town Wethersfield. They're also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with predicate acts with wrongdoing and with sequence shifts with databases when I was a kid. Identity thefts, frauds, and racketeering as roles with false police reports when I was a kid, where they're attaching me and other people to fake locations together through time. They have rules with the Yagman family further involved with houses next to campuses, with drugs with kids, and with doctors involved with predicate acts with child sex offenders, and with the counters to them. in collusion with their patients and criminals before they get caught. Also intercampuses, because this is how they keep the sense and sensibilities of the people that work with the identities of our agencies, of our branches of government. They never had word patriotism. Patriotism is a breaching screen yet. And this is what correlation reveals. So we need free speech before we can have an election. We have Wethersfield town offices many ways and many people than their family members. Recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved. Also, as the people, not by accident, simultaneously on and off religious locations, rolls with them with predicate acts and with uses of those predicate acts, which are also recorded means to observe uses of that. For example, this is completely fact treatment nature oriented, where you have Justice Department collusion with breaching influenced acts and affronts like what will add up to and in the World Trade Center attack, the investigators of it, in collusion with it. So there's a Heather Hansen, Joe DeMoro, and there are people from interbranch Connecticut, intercities, who are involved with drug crimes, with other nations associated with the libraries, and with Muslim nations, as the ones with the counters to it, as the ones with ad placements, with Wethersfield's police chief, with ILO's home services, and with Trantolo and Trantolo law offices, recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with conspiracy theories used to hide their predicate acts, their roles with wire crimes, with WFSB, with people on and off their location, roles, crimes with killers and body dumping spots, same ones intercities. Not by accident, they use the rights, they have criminal readings of the statutes where they've been given, see, they used each. So they're recorded also how they're kept used remotely as victims, but as victim predators. If they want to have that not demonstrated, because then they can keep using where and how they have identities of titles, pretending to have credibility where they don't, which is where and how we're out here, like online. They're discrediting legitimate information because we have recorded remote uses of the identity of the FBI, self-defended as an identity of integrity regardless if it's criminally foreign influenced originally and still, which it was and is. Not by accident, only me, so other nations do, they have the same identities of the law. Equivalence, the same thing. Man, they can't defend themselves without defending criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, active treatments, progressive treatments, and identity treatments, and reality treatments, and care treatments. These are not means. One way redeems. So we set up, we claim where people are most people stacked upon. This is only capable of being in and where and how everyone's a victim that blamed other things other than themselves, and that was exploited and is exploited. We still have to counter where and how that's exploited, but it is still exploited through us. Formally, informal, overt criminal enterprises, and collusion. And when I say formal, hundreds of nations have shared policing of identity ground locations, not just for nuclear weapons and reasons and things like that. No one was watching where and how science is sharing an identity is prevented free speech. Each person is forced to be backed into an identity ground used for collusion against correlation nature in relationship to most actually critical questions and points and topics. See, we have all topics have their conjunctions tactically, self-valued, worse than obfuscated, bifurcated, all that criminally. And we're criminally legalized. It is still through criminally legalized to have self-value criminally legalized, criminal diseases. So power and might never had what they wanted to need to say, allowed free speech. So one must teach. We have only passions and emotions allowed to speak for this breaching method, not correlation nature. And they attach people to fake yelling into the databases. This is part of the nature of the identity thefts and frauds were actually recorded here. And don't forget, we're observing where and how people are reliant upon the phrase, the word, the perfect world, and phrases slash values like scientific consensus, scientific process. And for example, where and how the identity of answers obligated to our identity of fact, treatment, nature, and relationship to things like slavery, bifurcated from this begins and ends with how everyone was a fact, treatment, nature slave per this breaching method. Where and how that made a whole bunch of manifest nature's needs, interests of liars, pretending others simultaneously, and how that was and is exploited. So Anthony Wall, youtube.com/user/Romulus Wall. It is recorded, confessed, and demonstrated Wethersfield town offices. They have names forging and switching. A whole bunch of people associated with mayors, retired and standing, are recorded, confessed like a former mayor Gold. Further involved with predicate acts on and off with and or wrongdoing roles, with definitely recorded what mail crimes, wire crimes, crime methods too. See the Wethersfield police with other police forms, former director of the FBI Don Robert Luskin. They've been putting fake transcripts, putting people even on the fake onto the Wethersfield Police Department, fake conversation. Never was at all with the older Mendez police brother. This is in Wethersfield Police Department. They did that also with child sex offenders, on the people on the child sex offender registry involved with other natures of predicate acts, other natures of organized crime, and of organized crime figures proven and further recorded, involved with other natures of interests by one bonding them. That's what's actually recorded. So Wethersfield town offices and all along roads and routes have people associated with on and off Paul Manafort Drive, Central Connecticut State University in New Britain, Connecticut. Now this is Wethersfield, Connecticut. So intercities right along that route, for example, that goes by Cross Automotive. That is also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated involved with the courts and with their family members involved through time with identity crimes, with sequence shifts, and with uses of value/value progressions all along Church Street in Old Wethersfield, the corner of the house on the corner of Church and Main Street. And right around the corner from there on Main Street is the Webb Stevens house. It was first called the Webb House, how they left it. And slavery was left entrenched here in the north between New York and Boston. Sickly in Boston, sickly distinctly in New York too. Not by accident, sickly distinctly. Where this is a breaching method that is using not just that, it was using the overall breaching method to slavery and roles, engineering every one. As premises treatment natures, as identity sequence treatment natures, identity treatment natures, used remotely. Misprison identity of the ground relationships used remotely. Self-value, live cover up needs, natures, leading up to and in the Trade Center attack used remotely. The since with the investigators used remotely. This is what is actually recorded. Dozens of people associated with Wethersfield Police Department, Hartford Police Departments. They're used remotely, and then they invested further and further, needing to hide all that to their wire crime methods roles, directed by leaders of various identities of agencies, influences over our own. And say, well, our fact sheet nature, why all we are allowed to see are people who are going to blame the police rightly when they're doing it, but wrongly at the same time. And though they lie about that, they lie about everything. We have fake branches of government pretending they're about truth. Oh, we have the right to lie. They already use the right to they're completely fact sheet nature oriented predicate acts roles, sequence shift roles, all kinds of natures of wrongdoing, criminal seditious natures of positive, self-valued as act roles. Not by accident, then they go speaking on community service, speaking on judges. They're speaking about their family members. Because that's how they keep everyone, victim predators. We have to see what is actually discerned, which is live progressions, not just from the branches of government, then how they need to hide those live progressions by hurting and having hurt each identity, each age of fact treatment nature, each age of correlation nature. This is correlation nature is a trinity, as the inherent, as the active, and as the progressive. Bonding, the sequence nature, that the extent of its value is sequence nature, is only negative value nature. Simultaneous nature. You could know what's going to cause evolution's fruits and gifts, and these aren't this liar's lifts alone, that pretending simultaneously be other. Not one identity of the ground location of other hundreds of nations at once. Not one of them has integrity. Never did. That's evidence. It's not, oh, that's negative. It hurts sensibilities. Same people need to offensively. They have people of the arts pretending they don't, oh, I don't care what people say, stuff like that. Because they need to pretend to be against what they're for. Follow mandated law. Stop starting fights between people. And it is recorded. Each one of these identity groups, including in sexual ones, recorded used as weapons by the people into branch, recorded using sensibilities as criminal and seditious natures, not legally criminalized, not legally legalized, and that's self-valued, and that's evidence. Free speech. Now, WFSB and Fox Connecticut News can't pretend to be about free speech when they attach me and others to fake locations and fake words and fake ties to other people, including doctors, not fake completely. And their family members online pretending fake needed fake locations too, illusions. They're hiding lie progressions. That's how you could see it discerned. That's how you could discern it. One of the ways. Plus their predicate acts into branch. Forging and falsified police report roles. You could discern what is actually recorded, how they stack all these names of strangers and will tell you they're strangers, but they're in the background being coached by judges and by prosecutors already caught with their family members, need to hide lie progressions, need to hide actually recorded uses of each identity ground location, let alone ourselves. Vaccines of Santa's elves alone. Come on, we can campus name. We play no game. So they think it's being adult. They have to self-value their physical delusions. They don't know how to be an adult, mature reason. They can't even free speech. They can't even free speech correlation that brings evolution's fruits, gifts, means release for everywhere. Other natures of relief. That kind that only these connected identities of revelations can be. Each one see, vaccines. I tell you things. I tell you best. Do stay, not less. So Connecticut elections, interbranch, we have criminally foreign influence leaders, and the news is in collusion with them, and they have crime methods of pretending to perceive things about other people's. Oh, but I have the right to pretend to perceive something about someone. Look, they're not speaking calmly online. When I ask calmly to have a response, the Britain Superior Court has rape threats against me when they still had leaders of kids with child sex offenders involved. Now, those people are also recorded involved with other natures of organized crime with kids through time. These are the types of people and jobs that have the right to say they have the right to lie. That's the truth, but they're using it criminally. They use it where it's not a truth. And that was already self-valued, and that's evidence too. And that's what's actually recorded. So you have to follow mandated law. Branches of government that influenced WFSB and Fox Connecticut News to attach me to fake words, fake sequence relationships, fake locations, roles with their falsified police reports. Each branch of government individually grouped together, recorded, having been criminally foreign influence, how maintain, hid it, that exploited too, right through administrations. That's evidence. Then they want to speak for black, which was most for sickly, distinctly hurt by that, effectively to keep how sickly, non-distinctly from being discerned, effectively, offensively to keep everyone already invested, needed to defend premises treatments, already having blamed other things, others themselves, for all that causes, and keeps self-value that way. Because the humanity prey. Vaccines. We don't have an industry that knows how to speak. We don't have a person. How we have a person who knows how to speak? How we have an industry? This is the proofs of this are where and how they don't follow mandated law. This is not just against me. I've been complaining too. No evidence. They've been lying about what's actually recorded online. They get away with it because you guys are punks letting people talk about. These candidates can't speak about positive and negative. They're victims, but they're victim predators. If they don't want to be shown as predators, then let them then follow mandated law. So I don't have to demonstrate how they're predators. Because I've been asking for a while. And when you go into court, that's part of the evidence. They forge names, switch names, no. Put fake recorded things into databases. As collusion with online and with areas crimes and intercampuses. This is why and how the motivations are actually recorded of the courts involved with crimes against Paul Manafort, people that are tied to him. Recorded predicate acts against little kids. These are people with there's a detective Samuda, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated, involved with courts with black and white issue and with racism, where they're using that with people where the courts have been pretending to perceive racism because they need to hide their predicate acts with people that are intercultural. We have military police families, like with the Justice Klavinskis, also recorded, confessed, and demonstrated at least involved with the wrongdoing, intercities, and on and off campuses, with the courts and with judges and prosecutors criminally involved, with the military families, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack context. People in backgrounds with my name that are involved with where they attach me to fake locations with complete strangers and people I don't know. And there's a pattern of it all tied to the same house. that has extended family members further involved with Sandy Hook predicate acts from my street in Wethersfield, Connecticut. That's in Newtown, Connecticut. These are the same ones interbranch and further involved on off the state judicial branch offices with detectives retired and standing in interbranch families. They don't have they don't have co-equal anything but co-equal collusion with an as an identity of negative value nature progression used remotely already. They can't afford free speech. Not just the way they can't afford it per their readings of statutes that say they can hide such. They're leaving out how they're offensively preventing such from being discerned per a breaching method. Also, they're hiding uses of that perfected. This is what is actually recorded. They're using the identities of experts on other nations, hundreds of nations at once. No, others maintain shared name, shared roles with uses of identity ground relationships manifest again across the board of nations, fake sides. Still inclusion with that since before cars involved with the fact cheating nature, torture, and slavery are our founding parents, let alone for those sickly, most sickly hurt by that. Effectively having kept out how sickly non-distinctly everyone is hurt by that, not by accident. It's very simple. See, we don't have what is very simple, capable of being afforded, understood. Oh, we're part of the elections process. I bet someone's opinion. We have still conspiracy theories that our nation, a whole bunch of nations at once, have involved with actually recorded the readings of the statutes, delusions wrought, criminally foreign influence, uses of identities, actually recorded. Manifest, how manifest? I tell it best. You have not heard anyone speak for the law that was not using truths for lies, that was not using self-value, that having been used that way. There is nothing of honor interbranch. That's evidence. This is our subject. That's evidence. Who says that see, one needs to pretend other needs to offensively pretend to care against things like prejudice? You're out of your minds. The forsaken is the forsaken. And it is sickly, distinctly everywhere forsaken, let alone ourselves. Then further. All that juxtaposed. So, FBI, respond right here. You guys recorded on over the phone. The next step, I'm not going to communicate with you guys secretly. You guys are involved with recorded wire crime methods with the Wethersfield police, where the Wethersfield police are involved with you also, with the courts and their family members involved further. Then it shows how you needed to and did criminally hide your lie progressions by uses of Governor Malloy and the principal sex offender, that prosecutors, male and female, with New Britain Superior Court, and that judges with New Britain Superior Court had and have crimes with, as the ones further involved with World Trade Center predicate acts and sequence shifts and other natures of wrongdoing and identity thefts, frauds, and roles intercities, interstates, not just interstates, but intercities, and worse than that, maintained. These are the same Wethersfield police that are a whole bunch of ways involved with other nations criminally, right through the Obama administration. They affected, and what was there before them, affected these other nations, Russia and Ukraine together, with our own. We have they have to sequence shift too. No, they sought me out as strangers to confess and demonstrate their roles. With also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, communicated. They pretend things are recorded on a constant basis through all the lie progressions on a constant basis to all locations. Uses of identity, the ground, where and how we're quality of fact should be nature. Where and how interbranch has been needing to hide lie progressions You needed to hide the roles with databases, pretended recorded things, categorically pretended into databases, pretended recorded by police equipment. Now there's a Leahy family also had fake conversations with me that weren't at all, and he brought that into it. They're bringing people fake conversations about their family members. They never were at all, with various natures of courts involved with this Leahy family. Dozens of people from the Britain Superior Court alone, leading up to and in the World Trade Center attack. And then since, but dozens of people with this Leahy family since, with child sex offenders and with crimes with campuses with them, with the leaders of the kids, for even sexual, as ones involved with medical and with the judicial, various natures of courts, and on off the state judicial branches. What is actually recorded how they have people walk, value/value progression. These are people involved with the uses of end of highways, uses of all along roads, routes, corners involved. So respond for them. Now, interbranch. WFSB, please follow the mandated law. Stop pretending sensibilities. You know, I'm not saying anything debatable, but if you want to keep making more things up, you attach me to fake words. Just correct that. You did that when you were forcing with more then and now recorded child offenders, even sexual. Now these are doctors in police forms like two Mendez police, forging names, switching names, pretending things are recorded into their databases into branch, switching sequences to no. And a whole bunch of people tied to these Wethersfield police with the houses next to the schools, like a Yagman family with predicate acts, wrongdoing roles with this, with the identity crimes, and with falsified police reports with Mendez police, and has houses off and connected to where that street from my town goes through Newington and to on off Central Connecticut State University, on off Paul Manners Ford Drive on the southern side of it. Now they have on-campus, off-campus policing and types of police forms, roles, training of police forms, training of the prison stewards, used to maintain them criminally foreign influence, used to maintain them needed to hide that, used to maintain them needed to value how they could get away with hiding it. And that was used perpetually. And this is relevant to their actually recorded Sandy Hook crimes, roles with, and as ones involved further with World Trade Center connections and with their roles with predicate acts as wrongdoing or whatever, as self-valued wrongdoing or whatever, but roles with the cover-ups with the investigators of the World Trade Center attack or recorded involved with a predicate acts delivery system method here, the subject. This, they don't have integrity, as records show, as they are actually recorded as value, within as value. Note how they have things declassified and classified, even in relationship to the they have a gang of 7. So what does that mean? In other words, we have some we have roles with this, where and how the identity of volume we are as identity is being exploited, and where it has now accounts where our fact treatment nature, where this is where the invisible is still discerned. Not one has learned boxings. It is every subject individually grouped in together. Any substance to advance it, we must bring it here, where we are invisible but still discernibly valued most, and critically in our control, where it is self-valued beyond our control, even though it's in our control. And simultaneously with self-values that can't afford us having free speech. Simultaneously, that is recorded self-valuing experts on logic, criminally foreign influence, delusions raw. Use roles with all kinds of cases criminally already. They're how what is actually recorded. You have to follow mandated law for Connecticut interbranch. It's not hard to discern how. It was always been this way. Hear many pray. It's very simple. Don't make them pretend it's complicated. They forge and switch names. Get them the one name and sequence at the branch. Then they switch sequence all kinds of ways. Get them onto paper. They switch names at the branch. They use the locations to pretend fake recorded things in the databases. Other nations have the same problem there because they keep it going. How I know this is you'll discern. You'll see in truck campuses what is maintained self-valued manifest because of what is inter-campuses and how it is in inter-campuses. And then further inter-sciences. Recorded self-valued, criminally foreign influenced, abridged, and offensively pretending other and getting away with it because of misprison identities of branches, needing to hide live progressions, and collusion with as that, not by accident. Manifest as premises treatment sick, absurd. So, follow mandated law for Connecticut. Do not pretend they could have this is interstates. You'll discern many ways the phenomena that was taken manifest for me to observe and for a whole bunch of people to observe by the phenomena related with the World Trade Center attack and with the series of connected predicate acts, self-value, recorded self-value, how through criminal foreign influence. It's very simple. There's no integrity of science in relationship to the correlation nature, identity ground. It's a force since before cars. The pathology of infrastructure, let alone the most forsaken people stack, only capable of unfolding. Whereas now, American history is about this. It's about how human fact-cheaping nature was used by a breaching method that was using to perpetually use. It was using to perpetually use human fact-cheaping nature, used remotely since before electronic definitions of that. We'll also observe the nature of sophistication it took, as of pseudo sophistication where it counts, but where that it took to bring the transatlantic cable, which was already plans for that and stuff. All that was unfolding with the beginning of our nation, which is recorded, contained by this breaching method. That's evidence. That's evidence recorded, self-valued by our identities of experts, identities of knowledge of American history. Their treatments are positive and negative with that. Oh, well, I love history. You don't love history, you tell this true. You allow this discerned. Now one has one to learn. So we would begin with this breaching method that had already affected colonists A through Z, had already affected nations A through Z. And they were furthering roles with it without anyone realizing. Everyone was blaming other things other than themselves. And they were needed to keep defending fact treatments that way, sequence treatments, identity treatments that way. And that was further and further self-value uses of criminally foreign influence premises treatments, sequence treatments, identity treatments. It is all right for a news agency to pretend, to say a truth they used to lie. Well, look, if we speak with passions and emotions, which they do, no, anyway. But our customers aren't going to like us. Then we change to customers instead of people being served. There's a critical need for news to be true and accurate. That's why we need to have licensed journalism. See, but this knew that we need that, so it had a fact-checking nature-oriented breaching method. So it has all exception and exception nature used to further what they're supposed to be against, which is fake news, making up fake news. just because, and when self-valuing roles within a journalist identity to get away with doing such and with having done such. Now, this is also a crime method that has the people that answer their phones, where they pretend not to realize things criminally because they are preventing free speech, while they are pretending that simultaneously pretending because they perceive things with physical delusions. No, they're pretending to perceive, like I asked them nicely first, that 50,000 times. WFSB and Fox Connecticut News to fix their wire crimes and crimes with falsified police reports and attaching me and others to fake locations, words, and ties to others. And sequence relationships, no, because these are the ones from Connecticut, intercities, intercampuses crimes, inter-private database tied stewards and their family members recorded how kept needing to hide the same finite, active, and progressive lives. Uses of their identities is actually recorded. So don't pretend we could have an election now, not in Connecticut, and not interstates tied to this. So respond. It's intercities too. Don't forget that. Not just intercities on from here to Central Connecticut State on off Paul Manafort Drive. Don't forget these are courts involved with crimes with Russians and Ukraine and simultaneously pretending to be against that. As recorded uses of their actually recorded misprison identities and libogressions. Also per their roles with intersciences campuses, also further intersciences. How used through time as actually recorded. That's all that's recorded. They've been using Facebook pages criminally. They're pretending the right to lie. They're pretending the right to judge things criminally. They've been exploiting exceptions, exception. They don't have the right to commit crimes and then pretend they have the right to judge it so they can hide what they hid from presidents and how they use them actually recorded. Free speech never spoke for black and white or white. And that's evidence. How sickly distinctly and how sickly non-distinctly. If you're white or black, or what shade you are, if you're mixed, you're not going to be allowed free speech. We have sick fake knaves. All truths are used to lie. They're preventing truth that is actually true. They're preventing exceptions and exception nature from having free speech. Anyone who wants to use a correlation nature that is capable, that hurt them. Simultaneously have to pretend to be caring about people. And about so they offensively pretend to glorify people righteously. So in other words, follow mandated law and don't pretend national news that you guys could have you could partake in election honestly. CNN, Fox News. Per your recorded collusion with the predicate acts of Fox Connecticut News and on off its location with intercities police forms. Former director of the FBI down. Weathersfield town offices intercity with Hartford at the Hartford location and the locations next to it involve with connected predicate acts and criminal serious nature roles. And with investigations where they investigate things and backgrounds. That was also preemptively, they know how that works. Because this thing was sophistication here before us. This which has sick fakes. Here CT breaks. Where it comes to correlation natures, simple words. The forsaken are the forsaken. Hartford, Connecticut. New York City. Find me one person who really has not who really doesn't care. Really thinks they have free speech because they don't care. They have self-value sequence relationships to the branches individually grouped together. Group that means that there are crime methods recorded manifest where the identity of the executive types of badges and identity ground relationships to each other individually grouped together. That was used by a breaching method that no one understood and no one can discern without having to give up themselves by revealing a quality of fact cheap nature that they can't defend, and and their fact cheap nature defenses of their identities at the same time. Their sequence shifts treatments of their identities at the same time. It is true that for economic reasons and for other reasons we have to counter nations individually grouped together are fake at the same time, including our own. We have to pretend we're integrity anyway. Otherwise, the other ones who pretend they're integrity at once hurts us. That has not by accident a breaching method maintained outcome. That is not by accident a breaching method maintained manifest series of fake sides of correlation nature types of identities as one identity of value progression, identity of negative value nature progression, self-value, and that exploited. That's what's actually recorded. This is not complicated. Follow mandated law. So these are also sources of CNN and of Fox News. Please don't pretend this is personal, because that will be evidence. I'm offering you a great story here. Nothing's made up. There's not one theory here at all. If you if you can prove anything I'm saying is wrong, prove fake things. Oh, but this is what the database says. It is recorded. There are means actually recorded to demonstrate they've been stacking fake things recorded into databases. They've been getting away with it by exploiting all that tied to the phenomenon. How where one locations, areas, states starts admitting what is actually discerned in relationship to all topics too, where they have the needs for money in this value progression system's opinions, all lied to, all liars, all pretending to be others simultaneously, all valuing roles with misprison styles of getting away with it backed up by them. Self-value further and further. We're an identity of negative value nature progression. That's recorded. That's not an opinion. Follow mandated law. That's evidence. People preventing the evidence, they're recorded like playing games. Well, this is they're using truth to lie. If you have all kinds of random evidence, it's a truth that like online. It's a truth that if you have one that's formally more vetted, evidential reception, then that's better evidence perception. That's a standard of measuring how you could have better evidence perception. But this has nothing to do with that. This has to do with that and that fake sides of correlation nature. Neither of them have related. This is where correlation is evidence. Non-correlation is evidence. We don't have to have. It doesn't say free speech, but unless you're going to think this way, dishonestly while pretending other. Correlation is evidence. Respond to mandated law. Respond to sequence true. These are Hartford courts. These are New Britain courts, Middletown courts of each age and nature and stature involved with the police forms. Uses of the identities of the police departments that are evil overtly. Uses of the phenomenon of the fact cheap nature when the people rightly blame them, but they're leaving out how the other identities of agencies are influencing them, having influenced them. Not by accident, because all that was used by what is not on the record, but there before them. Breaching method, sophistication first. These are identity ground relationships as each modern nation only capable of causing negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures in relationship to our identity of correlation nature, where and how we are value as fact human nature per its system. But this is not it's the reality that is not prevented free speech. Scientific consensus and scientific processes themselves are recorded self-valued, criminally foreign influence, and that's evidence. See, now we need to get them into branch onto paper to one name and sequence. They've been forging names and switching names. They use switching names as means to replace that time afterwards where they're attaching everyone to fake recorded words, fake locations, fake ties to others. So we have had branches of government and collusion individually grouped in together with the worst natures of uses of the worst overt criminal enterprises that you see on television, real or made up, because these are formal, also private, medical racketeering alone. Each of the sciences, each of them, delusions raw. That's evidence. And so what they want to do, debate evidence with sequence shifts. Well, we don't see it right here. They've been making things up into databases. Pick one name and sequence for Connecticut into branch. Don't forget also they already have recorded not just crimes with their spots, but they have crimes with the identity ground locations. It is recorded how they used and where are using former Governor Malloy remotely. They're having him pretend passions and emotions so they could sequence shifts, so they could further self-value predicate acts and wrongdoing, sequence crimes and databases. They lied to former Governor Malloy with child sex offenders' families, further involved with these Mendez police, with interbranch, individually grouped in together, crime methods together, distinctly, non distinctly, and simultaneously, and uses of that. It is not complicated at all. Now, please don't use passions and emotions because then we can't counter the actually recorded physical delusions that are juxtaposed with the fake righteous aggression and the fake care that is juxtaposed simultaneously with the actually recorded evidence of the misprison identities of each branch individually grouped together with this. Don't pretend that democracy has the right to get over on Connecticut, to pretend we won the American Revolution, or pretend they don't realize that war is not revolution, or to pretend not to realize that one identity of war that allows free speech and mandated law that reveals evolution's fruits and gifts and means and sequence true. That's why I'm asking you to follow mandated law on time. I've been asking since before the World Trade Center attack every year. It is recorded how there's a pattern of crime of Connecticut intercities, the same ones from my town intercities through time leading up. So that's also why I have correlation that we could all discern together. And the people involved with that, how they were fit to self-value roles with it, and how that was used through administrations, how they use identity ground locations, the relationships to the value of that, which is only increasing. So stop making conspiracy theories about people and follow mandated law. It is evidence how you don't. And then you guys forge names and switch names into branch distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. Weathersfield officers are involved with other agencies and with courts. They send like dozens of officers to forge names and switch names roles. And then you can't get any of them onto paper. And they do this with private people tied to them too. The rules with uses of untimely death spots on and off campuses are connected intercities too, with the locations next to them. This is what is actually recorded. I'm not just saying there's an identity of the ground relationship to our quality of fact sheet nature, and how it's being exploited. So we have to examine recorded interbranch criminal uses of words like exculpatory evidences and like inculpatory evidences as actually recorded. The branches of government are caught individually and grouped in together. We have rights. We have rights and needs and obligations to use the attorney general now, and I'll help you do this. We have to do it using these evidences that are also recorded, uses of Robert Mueller and of James Comey that are recorded, uses of identity roles, identity ground. Again, this is evidence. They were recorded, used, involved with sequence shifts, cover-ups of criminally used Connecticut interbranch, And how they cover it up is with crimes, roles, intercampuses, and further intersciences. Roles with that which was entrenched that way, including homeschooled, used by the same method, exploiting it from there, live progressions from that, live progression self-value, perfect world forsaken for self-value. It is recorded how there was the problem with the religious spots connected to through administration's abuses of kids, even sexual. It is recorded because they self-value, including women leaders into branch, self-value roles with responses to types of crimes, and self-value roles with uses of force defended by statutes, writing to defend identities regardless, pretend they have integrity regardless. See, there are exceptions in his exception nature and demonstration. They shouldn't do that, but they did. They left that out. That's where they self-value high roles with crime methods, forging names, switching names, uses of the courts where we can't record anything, so they can still stack more fake recorded things to hide uses of and to hide their acts and roles with juxtaposed natures of organized crime on campuses since they were kids. As victim predators, not even realizing it, but still self-valued. Roles with the live progressions from that. Roles with correlation nature stupid. That's what correlation nature stupid as what is actually recorded physical delusions wrought simultaneously criminally foreign influence when people make opinions about color. It is recorded very simple correlation nature, means to demonstrate human fact, cheap nature, criminally foreign influence, consciously or not. That's what we involved. And uses is what of that is what is involved. But we can't get the uses of it because we have no one following mandated law ahead of time, offensively, individually grouped together, each branch of government, sickly, distinctly, non-distinctly, and simultaneously. That means we have to counter not just the police department's corruption individually, but we have to counter it with where and how the identities of FBI and CIA and their family members are with sense and sensibilities influenced by their already roles with all kinds of natures of predicate acts, delivery system method roles that originally and still were entrenched here and between Native Americans A through Z as a method that made colonists A through Z, made Native Americans A through Z blame other things, others themselves, even when correctly they were simultaneously doing that for the real causes of negative value nature progressions, action natures. Offensively, the branches of government were pretending to be against such, as per the breaching method that was entrenched using human fact, cheating nature, using their live progressions only capable of being to each spot as identity, as correlation natures, identity of volume, words, qualities, fact, cheating nature, no, as positive and negative cheating nature, identity. Follow mandated law for Connecticut. How they did not was this evidence. How they are criminally making up and having made up fake exculpatory evidences and fake inculpatory evidences and hiding exculpatory evidences. This also shows how they were in our collusion with what led up to and in the World Trade Center attack. They also recorded criminally, dishonestly pretending, oh, how come you didn't say anything before this? I told you there is a recorded path of me attempting to report the confessions and also recorded. So they're also recorded interbranch criminally pretending motivations are relevant where they are not. They are in collusion with interbranch criminally foreign influenced, making up information simultaneously, readings of statutes where they say they could do things, but leaving out exceptions and exception nature, which also shows how they're getting over on logic, whereas criminally foreign influence uses of each of the identity of experts, like logic experts. Not a doctor, delineate their delusions from their criminal foreign influences for you here. Boxing. Nothing is binary. We all learn together. So the Attorney General has much to teach me, but I recorded have much that we could, and us all, but we will all have much that we could teach them. I'll show you how we can have free speech for at last. You have to claim it, not forsake, forsaken. When you see who is pretending other, you'll see how they offensively need to pretend passions and emotions in debate to be about debates legitimately, specifically so they could defend premises treatments that are relevant to where and how correlation nature never connected what is what are easily connected perfect answers to our unanswered questions, and where and how that why that was unanswered for this breaching method. That is the first answer. What made slavery? A breaching organized crime method that's worse than war crimes, but it's very simple. See all that and needed and relied upon how a whole bunch of hurt victim predator lipoaggressions, correlation sabotage, collusion self-value, identity ground locations would stay and become more and more manifest. Premises treatments that could not and cannot defend themselves. Identity treatments that could not and cannot defend themselves and ourselves from what exploits each person, each location, each area, each state.